Thank you for joining me today for Mandala Monday. Today we're going to expand our Doodle library and create a fodder sheet from the scraps that we made in the Getting Started with the Mandala Collage Art Kit video. I'll provide that link down below. Today's focus is on the Serendipity Soul Collage Art Kit. And here is an example of one of the mandala collages that you can make with this kit. Within this mandala, you can see that I've created a number of different doodles. So what we're doing today will help with getting this mandala completed. So I'm going to move this aside and we'll take a look at these sheets and I'll tell you what you need. So from the black and white templates PDF, there's a sheet with the shapes from the Serendipity Soul mandala. And then the other thing is the sheet that we created in the Getting Started video. And again, I'll provide the link down below. This sheet was created after we cut out the shapes for the mandala. We glued down the scraps onto a white sheet of paper and then coated it with Mod Podge. So we'll do this at the second part of the video. And what we're going to start with before we do these black and white templates, you'll want just a white sheet of paper and then a Sharpie marker or any other pencil or pen. I'm going to just put one piece of paper on top of another here because what I found, this is just a tip, is that the Sharpie sometimes goes through the paper even though it's 32 pounds. I can end up with little dots on my workstation, so I'm just layering two pieces of paper. What we're going to do now is create a page of shapes and marks. So I'm just writing that on the top, shapes and marks. And this is going to give us some ideas of what to add to these shapes here. So for example, dots, we could do lines, L shape, which is just two lines. Another way to look at two lines would be a V. We could look at continuing that V up and down, something like that. We could do arcs and wavy patterns. Maybe a mark like this. This is kind of like how you would draw a bird with just lines. Other shapes would be circles. From that, we could think of ovals, squares, rectangles. And I'm just coming up with a sheet of ideas that I can take a peek at as I'm completing these. So triangles, we can do triangles in different shapes. This is an equilateral one, so we could change the shape of our triangles. We could do diamonds. We could do something like a half circle, which leads us to like a moon shape. We could do hearts, teardrop shapes, ellipses, so all sorts of shapes. So what I would recommend is come up with a sheet of different shapes you can think of, look around in nature, look around at patterns that you see in your home, just coming up with shapes and marks. So maybe a swirl. We could even do a swirl, but make it into a block, something like that. So just coming up with a whole sheet of ideas for marks and shapes. And now what I'm going to do is take this one. And before we do, I'll show you what I have here. So I've already created two sheets. This one is using shapes and marks from the sheet here. And then this one, I really focused on floral designs. I'm really fond of adding florals to my collages. So this one is pretty much all different flowers there. So I'm going to move those aside. And then we'll put this here. And again, I'm just putting a white sheet behind the sheet I'm working on so I don't get dots on my surface. So to start, when I'm just exploring ideas, for example, I would look at this dot and just think of different ways I can add dots. And I'm going to do this one here. And I'm realizing I forgot to tell you another resource to look at. We have a guided doodling session. And with that, we have a guided doodling sheet. So that's something free that you can download on our website. And this is what the sheet looks like. So we go over just 2 marks. So here we did lines and circles, and then we explored different patterns to make the lines, different ways to add the lines to the different shapes for the Serendipity Soul Mandala, and then the same thing with circles. And on this sheet, we also have a mandala where we practice different ways to connect the shapes with the lines and the circles. So if you've done this, and I highly recommend it, here's another one. You can see how different these 2 mandalas look just by using circles and lines in this one and arcs and teardrops in this one. So moving on, so this is a good resource. If you've done this, you could even put those to the side to kind of glance at as you're doing this, just to come up with ideas. So moving back to our shapes here, I did these dots. And I could continue to fill up dots, but maybe I want to add a different mark. So whatever's coming to me, I'm going to add arcs just like this. And maybe for the next one, I want to do a line. So maybe doing a line right down the middle. And then maybe lines like this. And I could keep it like that, or maybe I want to add dots. So just coming up with ideas for each of these by scanning these. So I'm going to just continue. I'm going to skip that L. Maybe I want to go to this V. So adding a V. And then maybe I want to do circles like this. So just playing with the shapes and the marks on this page, moving from shape to shape here. Let's see. So maybe moving on to the arcs. Doing some arcs like this. So just filling these shapes. And again, this is giving us a library of ideas, but then also these can be used as collage fodder. We can cut out groups of them and add them to our collages. We could cut out single ones, add them to our collages. So we'll be playing with these in future videos. So I want to add this. Try that. Maybe I just want to continue with that one shape throughout. More circles. So just seeing what comes to mind for each of these. Maybe lines like that. Creating patterns with our marks and shapes. So we've filled in all these, and they're all completely different because we use different shapes and different patterns. And then looking at this one, maybe a circle and 3 teardrops. So that's creating a flower there. And then moving on to these shapes, just taking a look. Here I'm just doing circles there. Maybe I'll fit one more in there. Some arcs here, there. Do more circles. Maybe I want to do my circles with the teardrop shape to make the flower. Maybe curved lines. So just coming up with ideas. Some of them I'm following the lines of the shape like I did here, and then I'm using these. So maybe that. And when I'm doing these, sometimes I do them in one sitting, or I may be listening to something or having a show on in the background. And then other times I will just do a partial sheet, and then come back to it later. One of the great things to do with these sheets is have sheets that you want to work on and have them in a folder and your supplies ready, so that if you're ever stuck in a waiting room anywhere, you can bring these and you can sit and doodle, and it's a really relaxing way to spend your time. So doing swirls, do 3 in the same direction there. So just relaxing into it, shape by shape, and then just learning what kind of shapes that you like the looks of, the ones that you like to do in terms of drawing. Like for me, I tend to like curve shapes. I'm not as fond of squares and triangles, but then, I want to try them out. And even something like this, I'm feeling like, oh, the squares look awkward within a curve shape. But I continue just to see what I come up with. Those are just ideas. And that does look kind of cool. And I said I don't really like triangles. I'm going to try a triangle. Attached to other shapes. So sometimes shapes that I'm not fond of, I start enjoying as I test them out, without putting a heart in here. There. And wanting to attach those hearts with little circles. When we move on to the Fodder sheet, we're going to be using acrylic markers. So you'll learn that anytime you're making these like circles or anything that can be filled in, you'll be able to fill them in with acrylic markers. So let me show you here. So again, these are all florals, but I've colored all of those in. But even when I do these arcs here, I color in between the lines, so that's pretty cool too. So I'll let you continue on. I'm not going to complete this sheet today, but I do want to do a couple flowers, and I'm going to show you. We have a Sketch and Doodle Thursday, so we have a sketchbook, and I pick a different plant each week. And these are some of the ones. I have a whole sketchbook here. A lot of these are not part of Sketch and Doodle Thursday. We started, I believe, right here. So if I'm going to use this for inspiration, These were pine needles. I could use this type of shape, and this is how I do it. When I'm looking for ideas, so I'm not doing it exactly how I see it there, but this is giving me ideas of how to add different, maybe I want to try something more like with a stem up. So this gives me the ideas. That's how I did that other sheet, is just looking at my sketchbook, going page to page. So looking at this. And again, it doesn't have to be exactly how I drew any of them, but these are lines, curved lines with little circles on top. So just moving page by page, I can just grab ideas to fill up these shapes. We've got this floral shape, we've got leaves, we've got different shapes here, so maybe I want to add something that looks kind of like that. So that's how I do it. This one was an interesting one to draw, so seeing how I could fit it in, and even looking at these shapes, these little ovals, or something cool on that. So just scanning it. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do yet. Maybe I'll put the flower, you know, kind of just, again, just getting the idea of a shape of a flower. I could put some of the internal structures in there and then bring it down. So it's not going to be exact, but again, I'm just gathering ideas. So nothing on this looks exactly like this, but taking the inspiration from that. This one I really love doing. We did that on a Sketch and Doodle Thursday. This one, maybe I'm gonna change it up. I'm gonna put leaves on it, even though there's none. And I'm gonna do something different on the bottom. Kind of like we did over there. And then moving on, maybe looking at this shape here. So this is like a little bud. Little leaves here. I can bring this down. Maybe do another bud there. I could even fit another one in. And add some leaves. And looking at this one, and this one had some really interesting shapes that we did. So maybe I want to just add those down here. Do some curved lines and then do that again. Like that. And I can flip back. So here I added, there were different flowers with different marks. So that's how I do it. I just scan through different sketches that I made looking for different ways to inspire the shapes of my flowers. So I'm going to just complete these last two. And do I want to add some leaves? Just like that. And then I'm going to look for one more idea. This is kind of cool. Just going to follow this up and try to add some things that look like that. Just drawing inspiration from the sketch. And I want to fit in something there, so I'm going to scan. Let's come up with one more idea. See if I can do something like this. And that's it. So I completed half the page. I'm going to cap my pen. And then I'm going to show you the setup for the acrylic markers. So again, here's the sheet that's already completed. Here's the one that we want to doodle. The first thing I want to do is grab the color wheel. And actually I can show you the original sheet right here. So we cut out the shapes. We had all this background left over, so we glued it back down. And then all the shapes we used for making mandalas. Now these are getting ready to be doodled as well. Or they're ready, I should say. They're ready to be doodled. All right, so looking at the color wheel for the Serendipity Soul, we have the warm colors. So the warm colors are on the upper part of the color wheel, and you can think of colors that you would see in the sun and sunset. So yellow all the way to the reddish purple. And I like to use this, even though I can see the colors here, just a nice reference when I'm pulling out my acrylic markers. So this is the brand that I'm really fond of because it has a nice variation of colors. So again, looking at the color wheel, these are the colors that I'm grabbing. So the reddish purple all the way to the yellow. Whenever I'm using acrylic markers, the other thing I like to have on hand, I'm gonna maybe move this, well, this color wheel is gonna go now, so we can move that. So I'll show you my setup here. I have some cotton swabs, and this is just in case I mess up, I can wash them off, and I have the water here, so I can dip the cotton swab in the water and wash it off because this is coated with Mod Podge. And then I also have baby wipes, and this is really handy for cleaning off the tips of the markers. So just making sure that they're running well, and then when I'm done using them, I'll go through all the ones I use and then just wipe them off. Make sure they're not going to get dried out. So I'm going to set these to the side just in case I need them. The last thing I like to have is just little scrap pieces, and this is to test out the markers. So I'm trying to find a setup here that's going to work, because what I do want to do is to have the sheet we just did as inspiration. So any inspiration that you have, to bring with you when you're doing this. So we have this. I still have the marks, so I can put those up. I can have my guided doodling sheets to the side. These will all give me ideas for when I'm doing this. The other two colors that I always like to, well, for these, I don't need white because we're doing it on a white background, but I do like to have a black marker. And I typically start with a black marker. So what I do, again, is I test out the marker first on this sheet, and that's running smooth. And I personally prefer to outline my shapes. So I do that. Sometimes usually what I'll do is I'll do that whole sheet, I'll outline everything, but for the purposes of this, I'm just going to outline some of them now. So I'm going to just show you how the process works. Sometimes just tilting it to get a better angle. And this marker is kind of, there's a groove there because we glued that paper down, so I'm more following the line of the paper here than making my own line, if you know what I mean, because I'm feeling the edge of the paper there. Although there I just went off, so at this point I can decide to clean it up or just leave it. It's a little thick there. And I'm going to leave it. I'll do another one. And the marker's not working great, so I'm taking my test piece. When the marker's not working well, I just push it up and down, kind of scribble around. And that's working better. And we'll do a couple more. When I'm doing these sheets, a lot of the time, so I'm going to be using these as fodder, so I can do each one different like we did here, but more often I'll pick the one I like from here, and then I'll do the whole section the same. So let me show you here. So that's what I did here. I just picked one design and then I did them all the same, and then I'll use these in some of my collages. So whichever works for you, if you want to do a different one in each one or do the same. So for these, I think I'm going to stick with the shapes, just coming up with ideas. So again, I have this here, so I can look at different shapes there. And maybe for this one, I'm going to just do this line down the middle. And again, my black marker, I feel like might have to grab another one. There it goes. So maybe on half of this, I want to do circles. And the other half lines. So something like that. So for these, I'm gonna do the same thing. And then I'm gonna come up with an idea for this. So either something from here, or if I want to just use shapes. See, one of the things, I'm going to do these curved lines here and here. I don't have a complete idea yet. Maybe 3 teardrops like that, which end up making it look like a floral. And then here, doing these curved lines. And then deciding on something for the bottom. I did like maybe doing something like this. So that gives us some nice shapes to fill in with the colored acrylic markers. And then the last, this shape here. And I did like that flower, that simple flower. So just like that. So I'm going to go ahead and cap my pen, but I did mention to you sometimes it's just nice to make sure you clean it. If I'm done with this today, just clean off the tip and cap it. And then I'm going to move these markers. You can move this aside and do that. And then I'm just picking anything, any of these colors, whatever comes to me. So these are all from this palette. I'm going to take my little sheet here and then just test this. I'm not sure if I mentioned it. I don't think so. This is from the sampler sheet. I just coated a sampler sheet with Mod Podge, and then I cut out a strip, and that way I can even test the palette on here. So that's a good way to do that, to have a test strip within the same palette using that sampler. I'm just turning this because I don't want to reach and smudge anything. So I'm just giving myself access to these. So just like that, filling in the different areas. I'm going to cap that. I might use it again, so I'm not going to wash them as I go. I'm going to wait till the end. And then decide here how many I want to fill out. So look at how nice that's looking. So again, everything's going to go together for the Serendipity Soul using this warm color palette. I think I want a yellow in the middle there. And then moving on to the last one. Maybe yellow. And I'll go ahead and fill in the rest of these. Okay, so that is done. So you can see that there's so many different things that you can do with this. I'll be finishing this over time. Like I said, sometimes I just have this. I typically have like a whole set, like in a container of things that I'm going to work on. So when I have free time or I need some relaxation and I don't want to think about collaging, I have this stack that I can pull from and then just start working on it during those free moments. So these I'm going to be washing off. I won't do those on camera. And what I want to leave with today is setting up the ones that I did already, the full sheets. And if you want, if you're going to work on yours, you can just pause the video. I'm going to give you this one and then the floral one. This one has the flowers. So you could pause this and work on yours with this video. So thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to creating collages with you using this Fodder here. Thank you.